You don't need me to tell you that Toby Radiation Fox is really fucking good at writing melodies. It's really truly unbelievable how many simply perfect melodies he's written, and the ways he's able to weave and develop those melodies through both a piece and the game as a whole. You also don't need me to tell you that analyzing melodies is really hard. Great melodies are really natural, emotive, and magical things that don't really conform to traditional analysis in the same way, say, chord progressions or musical form does. Learning how to write good melodies can kind of feel like just banging your head against a wall until you finally concuss yourself into a nice sounding 4 bars. Despite all that, I want to dig into Toby Fox's melodies in 2 of his niche little indie games called Undertale and Deltarune, and talk about some ways to write natural melodies that serve a given piece, and also how to keep a melody going for the duration of a piece. Also, this maybe goes without saying, but spoilers for Undertale and Deltarune. If you've ever talked with me about writing music, you'll know I am an enormous advocate for repetition in music. The most memorable melodies rely on repetition in so many ways. Let's talk about ASGORE from Undertale. The A section of ASGORE almost entirely relies on these 2 melodic gestures. This figure with 3 quarter notes, which I'll highlight in blue, and this figure with this dotted rhythm, which I'll highlight in orange. These gestures don't need to be repeated exactly to be repetitions. Simply repeating the rhythm and the shape of the gesture is enough to ingrain it in our minds as similar. Most of you already know that the first of these 2 gestures, the one highlighted in blue, is established in the music that plays in the intro to the fight, Bergen Trucking. I love how striking and memorable this first blue gesture is. That rigid 3-4-1 rhythm is just so powerful and hype, and contrasts perfectly with the more rhythmically active answering figure. And the choice to land on the 4th of the scale instead of something stable like the 5th or the 3rd is again just so striking. Mr. Fox reuses these 2 gestures in new ways for the entirety of the A section. First, he plays them straight over the 6th chord, then plays them again over the 1 chord. This second orange gesture is changed to have this jump in it as a way of answering the first phrase. This jump in the melody is also sort of reminiscent of Heartache, the theme associated with Toriel, and later in the song Heartache is more obviously called back to. Anyways, after this he twists that first gesture, stepping up with it, and then following it with the second gesture twice. This time, the first gesture lands on the 4 of this 4 chord, and the 2 following second gestures actually sort of mirror the first 2 playings of the second gesture, this one rising, and this one jumping up and then coming down. This stretch of 16 bars only really uses 2 melodic ideas, and just morphs them to follow the harmony, and changes them where necessary to give a question and answer sort of phrasing. It's been said many times, but repetition legitimizes. It's been said many times, but repetition. This sort of repetition of a gesture is at the heart of Lancer from Deltarune. I believe that this one rising gesture on the end of 3 constitutes most of this theme's identity, with a lesser spotlight on this following gesture. Let's highlight the first one in blue for Lancer, and the second one in this yellow for his motorcycle that is actually a bicycle on fire. This A section is a perfect example of antecedent and consequent phrases, or in English, question and answer. This first phrase is the question, and it plays this gesture and ends it inconclusively. This second phrase is the answer, which replays the gesture in a different way and ends it conclusively. To get into the weeds, the first phrase ends on this dominant 2 chord, with the melody hitting this G natural, which is the 3rd of the 2 chord, and more importantly, the bluesy flat 5 in our key of C sharp minor, which is as inconclusive and raunchy as we can get. The second phrase ends on our 1 chord, the restful tonic, and the melody also lands directly on C sharp, the tonic of the scale and the chord. as conclusive as it gets. This rising gesture gets twisted around for the rest of the piece in a similar way to ASGORE. Our yellow gesture is less obvious in its repetition, but still there. Its 1 to and rhythm appears throughout the piece with different shapes and notes, most notably making a more veiled appearance at the start of the B section, where it's played twice in a row. It's worth noting that the repetition of these melodic gestures is likely part of why they work so well as leitmotifs, and why they're so recognizable when used in other songs. For example, in Card Castle and conversely Chaos King, there is a clear reference to Lancer, and it's likely so clear because of the strength of that Lancer melody and the repetition of that gesture throughout the original tune. Now, for the tune that I made this video as an excuse to talk about. I'm probably the biggest fan of this song on the planet. This is easily my favorite song from Chapter 3, and probably tied for my favorite Deltarune song with Fields of Hopes and Dreams, My Castle Town, and the Sanctuary themes. My brain chemistry was permanently altered the moment I heard this song on my first playthrough of Chapter 3. This tune is a really great example of repeating gestures in different ways throughout an entire tune. The entire melodic identity of the tune is established in these two bars. These two gestures, let's do blue and purple to match Chris, are repeated in different ways across the entire tune to build the melody. Let's go through the A section. First, we play the two gestures, the first of which being this very Zelda-esque descent from the fifth to the tonic, and the second being this descending walking figure, which at the end skips a note and dips under the tonic in order to resolve up. This phrase concludes with an altered repetition of our blue gesture, instead going from the tonic to the fifth. Then this whole phrase repeats but instead ends with a leap up, completing our question and answer phrasing. Then, the first two bars are repeated, exactly, note for note, rhythm for rhythm, but played over different harmony. Anyone who's watched my Eevee video knows that this is one of my favorite things in music, finding clever ways to recontextualize a melody with different harmony. Here, our first two gestures are reharmonized. The blue gesture is now reharmonized at the major 7th and 3rd of this flat 6 chord. And the purple one has been reharmonized to walk down through the chord tones of this B flat chord perfectly. This phrase is then repeated, but transposed up a minor 3rd in order to match the harmony, which is another flat 6 to flat 7, but this time going to a nice and uplifting E flat chord. I'd actually argue that these two bars are in reference to our blue gesture. We have the same 2-3 rhythm and similar leaps between chord tones. It's funny how simply starting your gesture on beat 2 instead of beat 1 can be enough to be memorable and add cohesion when repeated. After a repeat of the A section, we go to the B section. The B section that redistributed the synapses in my brain permanently. First, I'd be remiss not to mention the harmony, which goes back and forth between the flat 6 and 5 in B flat minor, then repeats that up a minor 3rd. This could also be thought of as the 4 to 3 in D flat major, then a 4 to 3 in E major, which is up a minor 3rd. Fans of the channel may have already recognized this as the exact same progression as the B section of Float Islands, which I talked about at length in this video. I just can't seem to escape 4-3. Anyways, the B section plays our blue and purple gestures back and forth in the key of B flat minor. I really love how these notes take on a new connotation over this harmony, particularly how the purple gesture walks down from the minor 7th of the F minor chord, rather than walking down from the 1 like in the A section. Mr. Fox chooses to square out the purple gesture to be more rhythmically simple, maybe to make it feel more impactful, or maybe just as another means of variation. After this, we say it with me now, repeat this, you didn't say it with me, I can hear you, you know. We repeat this phrase up a minor third. And then after that, we, come on this time, repeat, thank you. We repeat the whole section, but this time with a counter melody, and oh my glooby god, this counter melody, when paired with the existing melody, is just so beautiful to me. I'd argue that this counter melody, aside from when it's harmonizing with the melody, is one of the few things in this piece not beholden to the blue and purple gestures. And maybe that's why it's so effective. For what it's worth, I've listened closely and tried to see if it resembles another motif within the game, and I couldn't find any that really convinced me. You could argue it sort of resembles the freedom motif with that lower neighbor tone to leap motion, and it would make sense given this is a secret route, but nothing else in this counter melody really calls back to it. And I know Mr. Radiation Fox likes to do that lower neighbor tone thing in his non-Deltarune compositions too, so I'm not convinced. Anyways, this song ends with this section that is more agreeably in reference to another motif. This final section referencing the Holy from chapter 1. The melody over top of it, again, being something unique from our blue and purple gestures. This dotted 8th, 16th rhythm is classic adventure music stuff, and it fits the pseudo-Zelda vibe that this whole tune is going for perfectly. I hope this video got any composers watching a few steps further from aimless melody writing, and a few steps closer to writing more memorable and intentional melodies. Before I finish this video, I'd like to show you all a tune I wrote with a melody inspired by fantastic Mr. Fox. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy.